Every week, political media publishes hundreds of articles designed not just to inform, but to persuade. Not always dishonestly, not always cynically, but always with choices. Choices about which facts to include, which emotions to activate, which frames to offer you instead of the harder ones. This series catalogs those choices. We call the patterns techniques. And we find them in every outlet, across every ideology. We have run this analysis on Reason Foundation, Libertarian. On the Heritage Foundation, Populist Right. On the Center for American Progress, Progressive. Today we are at Fox News. And the technique is one we have not formally cataloged yet. It is called personalization. And once you see it, you will find it in every foreign policy story you read for the rest of your life. They don't challenge us. And he wouldn't do that. I don't think he'd do that, because of me. Stop at that phrase. Because of me. Not because of U.S. carrier strike group positioning in the Gulf. Not because of China's trade exposure to American tariffs. Not because of Beijing's energy import dependency. Not because of any institutional variable the analysts actually model. Because of me. Personalization is a persuasion technique that replaces the institutional variables in an analysis with a single relational variable. The personal relationship between two named individuals. It does three things simultaneously. First, it flatters the audience. It tells them that geopolitical outcomes are determined by the personal qualities of their chosen leader. Not by the grinding machinery of state interest and military capability, but by the force of one man's character. That is a deeply satisfying frame. It is also not how states behave. Second, it forecloses the institutional analysis. Once the frame is, he wouldn't do it because of me, any counter-analysis sounds like an attack on the leader rather than an examination of the evidence. You cannot say, actually, Chinese strategic behavior in the Gulf is driven by energy dependency, not personal deference, without it reading, in this frame, as an attack on the president. The frame has immunized itself against the analysis. Third, it launders a relational claim into the record as fact. The article does not present, because of me, as an assertion to be tested. It presents it as a quote that explains Chinese behavior. The reader leaves the article with a piece of information. China is not challenging the US because she respects Trump. That is not information. That is a frame, but it has been delivered in the format of information. The same article contains a second technique, one that is even more common in foreign policy coverage. Asked what would constitute Iran violating the ceasefire, the president answers, "Well, you'll find out, because I'll let you know." That is not a criterion. That is a reservation of the right to define a violation retroactively whenever it becomes politically convenient. Thomas Schelling, the Nobel Prize-winning economist whose work on deterrence theory is still required reading at every major war college, makes the case that deliberate ambiguity can function as deterrence, because it forces an adversary to plan against a worst-case scenario. That is the charitable reading of, "I'll let you know." The less charitable reading is that it reserves the right to define a violation in whatever way is most useful. At the moment the decision needs to be made. The article does not distinguish between these readings. It reports the phrase as though it resolves the question. It does not. It defers it, entirely, to one person's discretion. And then there is a third technique, lighter but present. Xi Jinping is described as, quote, very respectful. Respectful in what sense? In bilateral trade negotiations? In Taiwan Strait posturing? In UN Security Council votes on Iran sanctions? In BRICS currency discussions designed to reduce dollar dominance? The word, respectful, has positive valence. It contains no operational content. It signals that things are going well between the two leaders, which reinforces the, because of me, frame, but it carries no information that can be tested against any external evidence. That is a glittering generality. It sounds like a description. It is an evaluation. Before we close, here is the exercise. The next time you read a foreign policy story, from any outlet, any ideology, run this substitution test. Take the key quote explaining why another country will or will not do something. Replace every personal reference, every name, every he, every they, with the phrase, the institutional process. Does the sentence still make sense? If it doesn't, if the sentence collapses without the personal reference, then the article is letting a relationship variable stand in for an institutional one. That is personalization. You will find it today. You will find it tomorrow. You will find it in outlets you trust and outlets you distrust equally. Because the technique is the technique. The flag it flies is downstream. Pacing. 130 WPM measured. Do not rush. The pauses are deliberate, they are where the technique lands. B-roll priority order. 1. The two-column comparison graphic in section 4, most important visual in the video. 2. Strait of Hormuz map with oil flow animation, section 3. 3. 2019 Gulf of Oman incident footage or headlines, section 7. Thumbnail concept. Split screen Trump, Xi summit photo. Horizontal wordmark. Because of me. Lower third. StrataLens. Mid-roll ad placement. YouTube will auto-insert. Natural breaks at 3 o'clock, 5:30, and 8:30 align with section transitions. These are the least disruptive points.